A shoddy probe and a shoddy prosecution, says the court order of the Bombay High Court. So the question is, at the end of the day, if the prosecution failed to provide any conclusive evidence to support any of the charges, then what caused the accident? Who was driving? And is this or is this not a travesty of justice? To answer these questions and a few more, joining us on Debate 2 tonight, T R Kakkar, former Police Commissioner of Delhi, Sanjay Hegde, Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court, Anil Dharker, author and columnist, is with us, as is author and columnist Shobhaa Day, Advaita Kala, author, with us here in the Delhi studios, and Rahul Roy, actor, also joining us. Continuing with us tonight is Mr. A. Khan as well. Shobhaa Day, let me come to you first. How do you view these developments? The fact that the earlier court's order has been completely overturned by the Bombay High Court, holes punched into the prosecution's case, and of course the acquittal for Salman Khan.
Well, to begin with, this is not just the standard hit-and-run case. It's a very high-profile case involving a top star. It's gone on and on and on for 13 long years. There is absolutely no reason on earth to challenge what the learned judge has. He has acquitted him. He has acquitted him. The operative word here is conclusive evidence. Two operative words, conclusive and evidence. If there was none, if it was a shoddy investigation to start with, which we all agree it was, if the police had, in many instances, slipped up on just basically doing their job, whether they were influenced not to do their job or whether they really were that inept and that amateurish, we can't decide that. It was a very flimsy case. Now the verdict is out. He's been acquitted, and I think the judge has done a thorough job. So we just have to go along with that.
So the judge is not being questioned, Shobhaa Day. The judge is not being questioned. The question is one of how the case has panned out, whether or not the prosecution failed completely in building a case, and whether there was a shoddy investigation. Now, Anil Dharker, legalese is one thing, legal procedure is one thing, and as
the judge, it was a very shoddy investigation.
Yes, and as the judge has pointed out, it comes down to the fact that you do not need to prove your innocence, but the prosecution needs to prove the guilt. And yes, that's the legal aspect. But what about justice? What about the larger picture? What about justice for the victims?
You know, I've come to the conclusion that this is the first case probably in the world where the car involved was a Google car, an automatic car driven by nobody, because Judge Joshi seems to have gone and torn the evidence into shreds, but he has not gone into the basic question of who was driving the car. Someone had to be driving the car. One person was killed, 4 people were injured, right? Whether the tire burst before the accident or after the accident, whether Salman Khan was drunk or not drunk, these are the questions he has gone into great detail, whether the bills of alcohol added up or not, and so on and so forth. The prime thing is that someone was driving the car. That car went on the pavement. It killed 1 person and injured 4. Now, who was driving the car? Why didn't the judge go into that primary question?
Would you care to take that on,
Rahul
Roy?
If Salman Khan was not guilty of drunken driving,
it's not the judge's
surely
job.
he was guilty
it's
of
not the judge's
rash
job
and
to go into
negligent
it, for heaven's
driving.
sake.
Now, where is that case being taken up?
No, but we're looking at the larger question, Shobhaa Day. We are not questioning the judge. Nobody is doing that. The larger question is what Anil Dharker is saying. These are technical points, and yes, judgments are made on these technical legal points. But the larger question is that who was driving the car, who's responsible for that one there? And Rahul Roy, you seem to be amused when Anil Dharker said that, you know, it's a Google car, who was driving it. But it's a very serious matter. No, somebody was driving a car that killed 1 person and wounded and gravely injured 4 others.
No,
doesn't that question come up in everyone's conscience?
The reason why I was smiling is it's taken 13 years to come to a conclusion that such a shoddy job has been done by the prosecution and by the cops. Let's not mince our words about it. And is it going to take another 26 years to discover who was driving the car? You know, I mean, it really worries me that time and again and on a daily basis as a citizen of this country, we are repeatedly onslaughted by the shoddy job all over the country. And I'm not saying this out of disrespect, because I think everybody in this country respects the uniform and the law. There's no question about that. But you know, it's so disheartening that as much as we respect the law and the uniform, that repeatedly we are onslaughted by the shoddy job that is done and the way that things are carried out throughout this country when it comes to the investigative quality that is done in any case. And every time when we see anything
let's
that is
open up this debate a little bit and get a legal point of view. Is this a travesty of justice as far as the investigation is concerned, Sanjay Hegde?
Well, investigation was only part of it. And let's be a bit honest about things, that where it is the rich and the powerful, investigators are not very keen to stick their necks out and do a thorough job.
Okay, so you're saying this was deliberate?
They do as competent a job as the time and circumstances permit.
I don't agree.
And later on, when the matter doesn't stand up in court, they can blame the lawyers. The lawyers
Sanjay Hegde says this was deliberate, Shobhaa.
It goes on and on.
I think we generalize too much. Not all cases can be.
I would
you
think
can't generalize and say,
I would think that there was at least some deliberate inaction.
No.
Okay,
in a particular
deliberate
case,
inaction.
you talk of a case, but don't generalize and say.
No, we're talking about this. Mr. A. Khan and then Shobhaa.
They definitely did not take Salman for a medical test in time.
So,
no, and let's call a spade, Shobhaa, because earlier we had a former IPS officer saying it was a friendly investigation. Now we have a senior lawyer saying that there was a deliberate watching up.
Well, the former IPS officer coined a term which has no meaning at all, friendly investigation. What I meant was that you're talking about a particular case. Why generalize?
I would also just like to point out...
This
he said this about this particular case. Shobhaa.
Let's talk about one case. It was shoddy investigation. No one is denying it.
So he spoke about this particular case.
And he's saying that there was a shoddy investigation because it involved Salman Khan. That's the exact point that he's trying to make. Shobhaa.
But this is also, just to go back to what you asked me originally, it's not the first time that a lower court has, overturned the order. A higher court has overturned the order of a lower court. It happens very often. We saw it happening very recently in South Africa with the Oscar Pistorius case as well. So it is something, it's a very complex case. And it's not about a Google car or making this into a joke. There are many people involved. There are 6 people. We are forgetting Ravindra Patil, a cop who was doing his duty and he was chucked out of the police force. He didn't get support from the very police people who should have used him as a star witness or produced him. He was rejected by his family and eventually died a very tragic dedeath. There are 6
so that
people
brings us
involved
to the point
here, and
of what about justice for them?
Be asking fairly innate questions. It's a cliche. It's a very cliched argument to say the rich and the famous get away with it. That is not true either. So let's
Anil Dharker, are you making a cliched argument
and have such cynicism? We have Shobhaa Roy in jail. We've had the Chautalas in jail. We've had several rich, powerful people behind bars. This just happens to be a very badly put together, badly constructed case. And the judge had no alternative but to go by the law. And he's done his job.
Of course, the judge had no alternative. But what about justice? Anil Dharker. And then Advaita will get your opening comments on this.
The rich and famous have a big advantage in this country, that's for sure. Number one, they can hire the best lawyers. Whereas on the other side, the prosecution is hampered by the quality of lawyers. I'm not talking of this particular case, I'm talking in general. The rich and famous have the ability to influence witnesses. They have the ability to even influence the prosecution. So the dice are loaded in favor of the rich and famous.
Are you saying
that is one point. Now I want to come to this because this particular case
are you saying that could have happened here, or are you just saying this in sort of generic terms?
No, here there are particular points. That Ravindra Patil, who was the key witness, he was sitting. He was Salman Khan's bodyguard. Now he's dead. The man is dead. Now the judge has said he's an unreliable witness. why did not the judge look at the question of the way Ravindra Patil was treated by the police? He was sacked from the force. He died a pauper. He didn't have money to pay for his medical bills, etc.
No, but the judge went by.
Was he influenced
by the fact that the statements changed over time?
That is one point.
There were changes in his statement over time, and that's what's been referred to in the judgment. Advaita, I'd just like to get you in on this now.
Right. I think you can't mix the narrative up with the facts that were presented to the judge. You know, and clearly, I mean, there was evidence that this statement had evolved over time. I think I've heard legal luminaries say that it's improvisation or improvement on the statement, which affected his credibility as a witness, and I think that needs to be taken into account. I think when it came to this particular case, and if we be very specific, of course he had access to the best legal defense. He earned it, he paid for it, he had access to it. You cannot grudge him that.
Okay.
You know, I think that is unfair to do that. On the other hand, he was also charged under a far more severe section of the law, which is culpable homicide. So. You know, he was charged under culpable homicide, which we have seen in the past, and we debated this back in May when all of this was going on, that this has not happened in other cases of hit and run, even in other high-profile cases of hit and run.
Okay.
So are we then asking the question that was he charged under this section because he is who he is, because he's a celebrity? So that is really a counter debate. If you're going to
Mr. T R Kakkar on this point as well,
that has gone his way.
You were saying that you can't grudge him the fact that he could hire the best lawyers. You certainly can't, but don't you think that stacks the odds in his favor?
It stands in his favor. Of course, any good legal defense would stand in his favor.
That would stop
but why would you deny the right to the best legal defense someone can afford, be it whoever it is? That is your right.
Okay, Mr. T R Kakkar.
Today, Salman stands acquitted. In his household, perhaps the people are celebrating. But I wonder if this man will ever be able to sleep comfortably, because lies after lies and engaging the best lawyers, he's been able to get this reprieve. It is so easy. It is so surprising that the High Court judge, with due respect to the judgment, has reversed the order of the lower court completely and has trashed in so many words the prosecution. Because I would pardon my saying that if this man really wanted to help the accused, it is not necessary that he will demean the prosecution all the way. After all, the same prosecution brought this case before the sessions, before the lower court, and the lower court was convinced more than anything else, and perhaps after that only gave 5-year sentence. I find it so illogical here that practically everybody is trying to defend the judgment and to say that Salman deserves acquittal. Okay. But what happens to those people? I agree with my friend who said that perhaps Google was driving the car. Who was driving the car?
Shobhaa, would you like to respond to that?
Sort of clarify who was driving this car. And people have died, people have been injured.
Can I respond?
Just because he happens to be an influential person, he happens to be able to engage the best lawyers, he happens to win over the witnesses. Is that justice in this country? And it is so.
And can we please get Mr. A. Khan and Shobhaa both in on that?
Just blame
Shobhaa,
the police.
You go first.
Just blame the police. Shobhaa Day or whatever day she is. I have to just tell this, that you don't have to blame the police all the time. People in khaki, they do their job, and it is because of their job that he was convicted for 5 years. And if now the whole thing is reversed, my only hope is that the state government goes into appeal in the Supreme Court. And if the state government has any
we'll talk about the role of the police also. They are not in the clear completely either.
But let Shobhaa go into appeal. And let
Shobhaa respond, then
Anil Dharker. People who really love the justice join that particular person in the Supreme Court, so that justice ultimately is done. It is not all that a bad case that
yes, Shobhaa.
You just can't go into appeal unless you've got grounds for appeal. No, First of all, you've got to find out what are the grounds for appeal.
There are grounds for appeal.
What is the frailty in the judgment? I don't find any frailty in the judgment as pronounced by the High Court judge, the appellate judge, we have to find out what is the frailty. You can't just go into appeal because you don't like the judgment.
Find it is the question is how you
can't
read
say
it.
Because it is Salman Khan,
I'm going to how you read these judgments. It is the question how you deliver these judgments.
So that is
there is always a ground for appeal.
The state is free to go to the Supreme Court, which they will. But Shobhaa, they will. Yes, your response on these points.
No, I have a very small, interjection to make, which is that, we're talking apples and pears. We are talking about emotive issues. We're talking about public perception. There's a gentleman here who's as good as pronounced Salman guilty, which he may well be. But the point is, if the police had presented a watertight case, we would not be even on this panel talking about it. The judge's job would have been made very simple. If the case was a watertight case, there weren't so many holes and so many anomalies in it.
If it had not been a watertight case, the lower court would not have held him guilty.
It was the police's evidence gathered. It was the prosecution's case which led to that 5-year conviction. The point that was being made is that now it is overturned. So it depends on how you look at it. Earlier,
they have
it was the police that made the
their
case.
Mouth. They can't talk. They can't discuss while they are in uniform. So it is so easy to blame the police. They did their job. Conviction, they got the conviction. Now, if
it is not about blaming the police. They have, in this case, I'm sorry.
He doesn't have to blame the police.
They've just not. They have not done their job.
It's not.
They may have done a wonderful job in other cases.
Who says they have not done their job?
For whatever their motivation. I'm going so far. Okay, Shobhaa, whatever their motivation.
Why did he convict the person? Why did he convict him?
Advaita wants to just
if they had not done their job.
Give us a minute, Advaita, please.
He was influenced by the police.
Can we come to this?
Well, one second.
I think why we're constantly conflating justice with Salman going to jail. I mean, is that what justice equals in this particular instance? I mean, why don't you deal with the facts?
And when he was given the sentence,
sir, you have to deal with the facts. The fact is that this judge was not even convinced that he was driving the car. Forget anything else. I mean, he was not even convinced that he was driving the car. He's not convinced about the tire burst. If there indeed was a tire burst before the accident, then it could have very well been negligent driving as opposed to an accident. I mean, that was the differentiator. But the tire burst, he's not even convinced. This judge is not even convinced about the basics of this case. He's not even convinced about that, and he's basing this on that.
Yeah, Sanjay Hegde, if the prosecution has not been able to establish the two basics, that A, Salman was driving, and B, he was drunk or under the influence of alcohol, then they have failed completely.
No one has been able to prove that he was driving the car. Well, that's what the judge has said.
Well, that's what the judge is saying.
You are presuming that he was driving the car based on a fraud statement of Ravindra Padmaja.
The judge has said that the prosecution failed completely in proving these two.
Thereafter, they said it was not Salman driving. It was this new driver who surfaces after 11 years. Despite all that,
one second, Mr. Kakkar, Sanjay Hegde is responding to my question.
By the trial court.
Mr. Kakkar, give us a minute. Please, give us a minute, Mr. Kakkar. Sanjay Hegde is speaking. Yes, go ahead, Sanjay.
Can we come to this question of who was driving the car? I think that really is.
There were two contradictory things that the defense said. First, they said that it was a tire burst. When they said it was a tire burst, they did not imply that Salman was not driving. Then later, many years later, comes along this driver who claims that he was driving the car. All along, there is this one witness who has been examined before a magistrate who said it was Salman who was driving. Unfortunately, the man did not live long enough to be cross-examined. Every little benefit that was available seems to have been today given by the judge. The judge has taken a judgment call. We all have to respect what the judge says. But at the end of the day, the judgment is subject to appeal. I think the way forward is to file an appeal in this case.
We cannot reverse the judgment.
Yes.
Unless the Supreme Court takes it up and...
It was not the job of the judge to decide who was driving the vehicle. It was the job of the judge to find out whether Salman was driving
the vehicle. Please don't tell me he had no option. Please don't tell me he had no option.
He had to find out whether Salman was driving the vehicle or not.
The trial court thought that the burden of proof had been met beyond all reasonable doubt. This High Court decides that it wants...
witness says that yes, he was drunk. That is not accepted. That is up to the justice. That is
no, and I think I've not seen that in the first.
But I'm only trying to point out.
Here what seems to have happened is
somebody says he was driving, that is accepted.
No, and at the end of the day, I think the most important and the critical question in this entire debate will remain, who was at the wheel of that car? There was a man dead on that night.
Let's find
and there were
out.
4 people who were injured.
Well, you have a confession.
Who did it?
For that, don't you?
Can that man, Nurullah, simply be forgotten and everyone goes home happy that the ends of justice have been served? That's the question we'll continue with on the other side.
No, I don't think Salman will be able to sleep peacefully. He has bought this justice.
Well, on that very contentious note, we're going to go into a quick break. We'll be back with you, Mr. Kakkar, in just a couple of minutes. Has the way in which the entire investigation that was conducted into the Salman Khan hit-and-run case been a travesty of justice? The judgment was a foregone conclusion simply because of the way the investigation was done. T R Kakkar, we went into the break with you making a very serious charge saying that this judgment has been bought, and I want to start out by getting the reactions on that first from Shobhaa, Advaita Kala, and all those who think that the ends of justice have been served. Shobhaa, you first.
No, it is indeed a very serious charge, and I hope he knows what he just said on national television. There have been rumors, speculation all through this 13 long years of whatever has happened in this case, where people have talked about influence, they've talked about people being bought, they've talked about witnesses turning hostile. Unfortunately, the emphasis has shifted totally from the victims of this horrible accident, whatever you want to call it. And we're not thinking about that person, the victim in the village, who's saying, I don't care whether he goes to jail or not. I don't care what happens to Salman Khan. Frankly, just give me the money. And they have really suffered, and nobody has addressed that. So far, we've been completely obsessed with the celebrity in this case and whether justice has been served or not. Who knows whether it's been served or not?
So if the victim is happy with the judgment,
the investigators have provided what they have. And it's a... who are you asking that to?
Yes, I was asking Mr. Kakkar, Mr. T R Kakkar. Shobhaa argument is that the victim's family says that we've got the compensation, and that for us is more important than the conviction of Salman Khan.
That is what I'm trying to say, that every stage he has been able to influence. He
hasn't got any.
And by those witnesses, he has done that, and that is how the justice has been.
The victims' families
travesty
also.
of justice. This is what I'm trying to say.
At every stage, he has been able to say this.
Can you prove it, sir?
When he is convicted, when he is convicted by the lower court,
can you prove it?
An ordinary person after conviction, the rule is that he is taken by the hand to the court, to the jail. But here he gets the reprieve in. The court sits from after 5 p.m. court sits for another 2 hours. And
no, but what proof do you have? Shobhaa is asking.
And he doesn't go to jail. Now
these are baseless allegations
is it possible
that you could be making.
Yeah,
this is conjecture.
Exactly.
Tell me, is it possible?
Why not? If the court thought that
is it
there was miscarriage of justice, they intervened.
But it happened. It was possible, and it wasn't challenged.
Mr.
He was legally within his rights.
It was challenged.
Now,
no one challenged it.
You are only presuming that the court was
technically possible.
And when anything wrong has to be done,
citizens do care.
The police didn't do it.
If a law had been broken, citizens do care.
No.
Yes, Mr. A. Khan.
I'll wait for Mr. Kakkar to finish.
You're wrong, sir. Citizens do care.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that why he was granted bail immediately, that's a different matter. If the lower, can you allow me to talk, Mr. Kakkar, or you talk? I'll keep quiet, because you see, both of us cannot talk.
No, you talk.
No, so let me complete. Then you can say what you feel like. My point was, if the lower court conviction by the lower court, we are harping on it. The fact remains that the lower court also erred in not taking into account the discrepancies, the mistakes made in taking the blood sample and sending the blood samples for examination. Now, if the higher court was convinced that there was infirmity in the judgment of the lower court, it was perfectly within its right to grant him bail and to give him relief. Why not?
No,
okay, so
Advaita, listen one second. Advaita, you were shaking your head there because you are saying that all these allegations of influence, money, power, having bought everyone along the way, even influencing the victims' families, you were shaking your head to that. But one point that Mr. Kakkar just brought up is that, yes, there were a lot of questions at how rapidly and dramatically things moved that day. After the conviction came from the lower court, how rapidly did things turn around? Does that happen normally? Do you see that in ordinary cases?
So again, I go back to his legal defense. I think when they knew that the outcome could be one or the other, I mean, there were definitely going to be two options as far as this is concerned, and they did activate things and they did get things moving. I mean, that is definitely a privilege that he enjoys because of the kind of defense team he has, and it also to us was the fact
if he had spent just one.
Sir, he's already spent 6 months in jail. He's already spent 6 months in jail. We forget that. For this very thing, for this very issue, he has spent 6 months in jail. It's not a question of spending that one night in jail. It's a question of leveraging the law in your favor, which is the professional competence of his lawyers. And why should he not exploit the professional competence of his lawyers? That's his right to do that. I don't think you can grudge him that. I mean, he's already spent 6 months in jail. It's not about spending that one night.
He has been able to influence.
Okay, Rahul Roy, you know, there is a view over here which says that if he can afford the lawyers, he employed them. He got the best legal defense possible. If there were some things that he could, some exceptions that were made, and they were made for him, why shouldn't he avail of them either? Then why are we so cynical about what's happened? The due process of law has been followed.
I'm sorry, I agree with that. As a citizen of this country, if I can afford it, and it's something that is granted to me as a citizen of this country, it's my right. I don't think no matter who complains about it, who begrudges me, I will use everything that I can to defend myself. And if the prosecution is weak, if the cops cannot put up an airtight case against me, that is their problem. It is not my problem. I will
so you
do
think it
everything
ultimately
to defend
boils down
myself.
to the incompetence of the investigator?
Exactly. That is their problem. It is not my problem. I will do everything to defend myself because that is my right as a citizen of this country. And I'm sorry, everyone has the right as a citizen of this country to do that.
So you were defending the Mumbai police very staunchly, but ultimately, when you keep blaming Salman, it's actually the Mumbai police which
I am still defending. If the case had been all that weak as is now being brought about, the lower court would not have convicted this person.
Fair enough, sir.
Or let's assume that the judge did not know the law at all. That lower court judge did not know the law at all.
Yeah, Rahul Roy and Shobhaa did. That was the point that was being made earlier. Let Rahul Roy respond to that. Let Rahul Roy respond to that. So Rahul, the point is, going by your argument, if you look at what happened earlier in the lower court, it's that very case put together by the police that led to the 5-year conviction also.
Sir, if that was the case with the lower court, I'll go to the higher court, I'll make the appeal, I'll fight it there. If I lose there, I'll still go to the higher court and I'll fight it there till I am convinced that I can get away with it.
If that is the case, then that's fine. Lost, let the state go in appeal to the Supreme Court.
Fair enough, sir. Let them go.
If the state is not willing to go, let the victims go.
Fair enough.
And let all right-thinking people join them.
Fair enough.
Okay, Sanjay Hegde, and on that point I want to come to you. What happens now if the state does go and appeal to the Supreme Court? Is there going to be a way forward? Because it's going to be the same evidence, which the High Court says is flawed.
Was that question for me? Well, what happens now is essentially that the state of Maharashtra has to take a call on whether it is going to file an appeal or not. I've been a state lawyer in the Supreme Court for many years in the past. It is my experience that at this stage, very often the person who has got an acquittal tries his level best to persuade the state authorities that there really is no case for appeal. I do hope that the state of Maharashtra looks well and hard at the case. This is a case where 2 judges have deferred. This is a case where obviously 2 separate standards of proof have been adopted at the 2 levels.
Can there be a reinvestigation, Sanjay Hegde?
Proof beyond reasonable doubt meant something to the trial judge and seems to have meant something else to the High Court.
Can there be a reinvestigation, Mr. Hegde?
I do hope that the state of Maharashtra takes a considered and quick decision as to whether to file an appeal. Because after all, not only has justice to be done, but it has to be seen to be done. And in this particular matter, despite being an officer of the court, despite having a long experience of courts, I do think that there is a certain public perception that all of us must also be aware of.
Although the court says that a judgment cannot be based on public perception or what the media says, I give the final word to Shobhaa Day and Anil Dharker. Mr. Dharker,
I'd like to
for Nurullah and his family,
give the system
and for four
a good
others,
hard look,
what is justice today?
Ensure that no innocent man is punished. How will justice be done to them?
But Mr. Dharker,
it is public duty to ensure that no guilty man can walk free. The best lawyers.
Mr. Dharker and Shobhaa Day.
Asking me?
Yeah, asking you.
Yes, Mr. Dharker, the question is to you.
I wanted to say that, has anyone noticed how Justice Joshi has been really hard on the Sessions Court judge, on the police, on the prosecution, but has been very, very kind and soft to the defense. Now, driver Ashok Singh, Salman Khan's driver, was introduced at a very, very late stage. He was introduced, in fact, towards the end of the Sessions judgment. When he suddenly appeared from nowhere, he was never in the picture right through the trial. He comes in at the last moment and takes the blame and says, I was driving the car. Now, Justice Joshi says the defense didn't bring him in late, they brought him in at the right time. Now, I find this such a soft kind of attitude. And then I want to add that if Ashok Singh was driving the car, why is he not being prosecuted? Why hasn't the judge recommended that he be prosecuted for rash and negligent driving? We are forgetting the basic point, which is that someone was driving that damn car, which killed one person.
And Shobhaa Day, coming back to that point, and
we are looking at technicalities. We are looking at blood samples.
Also brought up the issue of public perception.
We are looking at bar bills.
Legal procedure is one thing. Public perception is one thing. And where do you think that stands? Because we've seen two opposite extremes. We have seen the Bollywood fraternity, even earlier when the conviction had come out, the Bollywood fraternity come out and talk about his being human foundation, what a great human being he is, and various things which actually had no relevance to the case. And today we are seeing that yes, there is one section of society which has this perception that justice has not been served.
Yeah, the strange thing is that there are theories doing the rounds that because there's so much money riding on this gentleman, that is somehow the fraternity is backing him because they're worried about an investment. And this is a very lopsided way of looking at the law. And all I would like to say is that at the end of the day, the critical question is, if Salman Khan indeed has gotten away with something that is a very serious offense, it's between him and his conscience, and that conscience is not going to spare him. So how he sleeps at night, it depends on the man, and how he comes to terms. If he is guilty and has gotten away with it, is a completely different moral question. The legal question is, he has been acquitted. Just accept that. And if the Maharashtra government does indeed take it to the higher court, to the Supreme Court, then a whole new chapter and a whole new saga begins. So let's wait to see how all of this unfolds. Public perception, yes. The public perception says Salman Khan is guilty.
Shobhaa,
and he's gotten away with something.
But
let us not also make it a crime for a man in his position who has the resources, who can hire the best legal team to get him out of a mess. Anyone else in his place would have done the same thing if they had the resources.
No, actually,
they wouldn't have said, I'm putting my hands up. I'm admitting to.
There is a general perception, contrary to what you say, which is favorable to him. That's what a lot of our panelists have said. That the investigators seem to have gone a little soft on him. Suddenly there was these coincidental flaws that appeared in the investigation. But that's again a debate that will go on for much, much longer. For the time being, like Shobhaa Day said, the question of his conscience, well, that can be answered only by Salman Khan. For now, thank you very much, Advaita Kala, Shobhaa Day, and all gentlemen for joining us on debate number 2.